I challenge my kids that maybe when things aren't going well is to forget about the golf after you hit your shot and find out where a kid's from. And I've told my guys, I was like, I want to know at the end of your day where both your players were from, if they have siblings, where they maybe go to school. And all it does is just shift their focus from nonstop golf and what went wrong or what went right on every shot and trying to concentrate for 4 or 5 hours because you just can't.
Welcome to the Golf Parent, where you get access to the best minds in junior golf. I'm your host, Ryan Addams, and today's guest is Chris Parra, head men's golf coach at SMU. Chris has one of the most interesting paths in the game. He played professionally on the Canadian Golf Tour before moving into college coaching, where he helped develop elite players, including Bryson
and PGA Pro Austin Smotherman.
But what makes this conversation so valuable for parents specifically isn't swing mechanics or stats. It's what Chris shares about resilience, mindset, and culture. We talk about why perfectionism is quietly hurting young golfers and why learning to give yourself grace is actually a competitive advantage. Also, how mental skills like breathing and emotional control play a huge role in long-term success. Chris also breaks down what parents really need to understand about today's recruiting landscape, how it's changed since 2022, and why initiative matters more than ever, and how families can support the process without getting in the way. If you're raising a junior golfer with college aspirations, or simply want to help your child handle pressure, setbacks, and growth, this episode is a must listen. So now, without further ado, let's get into it. Joined by Chris Parra, head coach at SMU. Chris, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we were just off air kind of talking about your time playing in Canada. I mentioned that I'm currently living in Victoria, British Columbia, and you had mentioned some of the golf courses by memory on the island. What was your experience playing on the tour, in the Canadian tour?
I got status up there, I think in 04, 5, 6. I was so excited to finally get off the mini tours for a couple years, and I didn't know what to expect. And like you said, my first vision was being over on Victoria Island and playing Royal Colwood and the massive trees. And, it almost felt similar to home, minus, kind of the damp, cool, probably San Francisco, Carmel weather. The food was similar, and then a lot of great people up there. So, that was my first memory of Canada. And then we traveled on the ferry, put the car on the boat, and to Vancouver. And our next event was in Vancouver. So I got off to a pretty awesome start with really loving playing the Canadian tour.
Yeah, it's a special place for sure. It's got this very kind of British, for those listeners and the audience that aren't familiar with Vancouver Island. You look outside, you've got killer whales and all kinds of this incredible marine life. You've got deer, wolves, bald eagles. Like it's just like it's like Disney. It's like a Disney basically book with giant. They're not redwood trees; they're giant cypress and hemlocks. But it really is a pretty unique place. Yeah, beautiful place to live. But now you're not where you're normally. You're not normally in. You're normally in Texas, but you're not there right now. Where are you right now?
So I'm in Vail, Colorado. When I met my wife, she had been living here for about 13 years. So, being a college golf coach is similar to a school teacher, other than the golf program goes to off season. Most all D1 programs go to off season for golf around November 1st or 2nd. And then we're not allowed to really have practices and stuff like that. The hours are really cut back by NCAA rules. So I come up here and I ski a lot in the winter, and then I come back in the summer for about a month or two, and I'm able to travel out of here to recruit. And the weather's a lot nicer up here uh, in the summer, that's for sure.
I would go on to live and say that you might be living the dream right now. You're skiing, you got the time off, and then you're spending the time all immersed in golf. There's a lot of listeners right now. They're like, they're pretty darn jealous. No, they definitely don't, because there's so many little like tweaks that if you tweak your wrist, you tweak your knee a little bit, something. I mean, that's it. I mean, yeah, you won't be able to perform. So it's both, I guess, good that you that you aren't playing anymore, but also I'm sorry to hear that. That's a horrific sounding accident.
We just use it as a learning example for the guys, like, because they all ski or do stuff with their families. I'm like, even if you're being careful in any situation, especially when you've worked your whole life for these kids and these young kids that are in sports to, go to college and play that sport, that you could jeopardize a year or 2 years by just a simple mistake, whether it's skiing or wakeboarding or, riding a mountain bike. Like, so we use myself as an example,
Hmm.
try to learn from everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to balance that, right? Because I mean, like, you want to have a life, and kids want to, they want to have a childhood, they want to make those memories. But you're right, it just makes one little accident, one bad decision, one little setback that could just really, I mean, because progression is so intense, in every year, like it's leaps and bounds year after year after year. So, to take a physical setback like that, yeah, I guess the question is always, is it worth it? Is it worth it right now with what? So you, Chris, have coached some incredible collegiate players that have gone on to the tour. I'd like to highlight a few of them. So maybe let's start with when I believe when you first got into coaching, that was right around the time that Bryson was just like in his last year or in his last couple of years. Is that correct?
I did. I came in his junior year. So my first semester, no, I guess it was the January of 15. So I actually started after the fall semester, which is different for coaches. I was coming off a hip injury and had to have my labrum repaired, and I was on the Corn Ferry, and I basically just gave up playing to go into coaching and help a friend, and I loved it. So my first semester coaching was the year in 2015 when NCAA's was at concessions, and Bryson won the NCAA championship stroke play portion. So that was my first realm into kind of college golf, and we made match play. And then Bryson wins the USAM that summer, and I think this is how easy is this? Like, show up and we win, and we have NCAA champion, and but obviously we know golf's a lot tougher than that, and we've had our ups and downs the last, I guess, 9 years that I've been there, and we're really back on the up and up. So, you get great players like Bryson, Austin, Mac, and Noah. It's separate generation, you know, different years. And so for 2 years, you usually have a pretty good program, and then you're kind of rebuilding when a couple guys leave like that. You struggle for a couple years. And I think, you can look at a Stanford or a Vanderbilt, some of the really, private schools that go through that. State schools, not as much, because I think tuition's cheaper. It's a lot easier to have, in the past, you could have 12 to 15 guys. You could have a lot of walk-ons at a state school, whereas at Stanford and Vanderbilt and SMU, it's so expensive. So you don't have that depth of a team or that deep of a team. So, with Mac and Noah, we got back into the top 20 in the country, and then we struggled for a couple years with the freshmen we have, and now they're juniors, and we made it back in the top 25 in the country. And I expect really big things next year.
And congrats on that resurgence, because it's not easy to build a program. I want to get into that in a second about what it takes to build a winning culture. But going back to Bryson, so that must have been interesting for you, because you were playing professionally just a couple of months ago, and then you see this young kid that is really excelling. Like, what did you notice when you were looking at the other pros and yourself, and maybe your mentality or your way of practicing, or just what did you notice about the professionals that you were around, and then all of a sudden what made Bryson either similar to or different than the pros that you were playing with?
I was lucky because when I was playing, I bounced back between Dallas and Jupiter, Florida. So I was a member at Medalist Golf Club, where Tiger and Ricky Fowler. So I got to practice with, some of the best in the world for about 10 or 15 years. And then, when I would come to Dallas and I would host the team out at Brook Hollow, that's where before I was coaching, I had actually met Bryson and Austin. And, Bryson was just cruising along. I'd play with him, and there was nothing flashy. And he goes, "Hey, Chris, how far is that bunker to carry on that par five?" I'm like, no one really ever tries to take it over that bunker. It's just not worth it. I think it's 330. Well, all of a sudden, this 19, 20-year-old kid drops his right foot back about 4 inches and closes his stance, goes after one, and flies at like 338. And I'm like, okay, like, I've seen Tiger hit some bombs and a couple of guys, but like, the most normal guys, I was like, wow, that's interesting. And he did it about 3 or 4 more times in the round, and he hit it so straight. And then fast forward a year later, I'm coaching the team, and then I really started to see Bryson's work ethic and how hard he pushed himself to be great. And I think a lot of people the last like 5 years have probably seen that with Bryson, like him getting into the long drive stuff. And it wasn't necessarily to be in the long drive stuff, but it was about Bryson, increasing his speed, so his average was a lot higher, right? Like if you can hit balls at 200-mile-an-hour ball speed for an hour, you just increased your minimum ball speed up another. I mean, I think his minimum ball speed now or his cruise speed's like 190, 192. I mean, that's crazy. And that's kind of the reason he did the long drive stuff for a couple years. So yeah, Bryson was, my first realm into, the college golf and, really trying to change the game. And I think you hear it in Bryson's voice now. Like he wants to grow the game and let's do it as many ways as possible. And obviously, whether you're on the PJ Tour side or the live side, like, there was a lot of money involved in live, but Bryson saw a huge opportunity to really help grow the game in other countries and not just in the US.
It sounds like also listening to some of his interviews, it also sounds like the extra time that with the new schedule with Live freed him up to be able to create a lot of other content on YouTube and other things to also help grow the game. And yeah, I know his videos are fantastic. They're obviously, they're booming. And when you're grinding it out week after week after week, you don't really have that spare time. So that also seemed to play into it. At least that's what I'm deducing.
No, no, no. You're right. I mean, he does love the YouTube stuff and meeting new people. And when you do have that grind of 27 to 30 weeks on the PJ Tour, when you do have a few weeks off, like the last thing you want to do is go shoot 8 to 10 hours of content for 3, 4, 5 million followers. So you're right.
Yeah, I'd rather be up in Vale, surrounded by beautiful trees and breathing that mountain air. I mean, like, who are we kidding? So then Bryson moves on, and then there was, like you said, different generation of players that were coming in. So we talked about Austin was also like around Bryson's age, and he's gone through some adversity. And he recently just won on the Corn Ferry Tour, which is bringing him back into the PGA Tour. Can you talk a little bit about yeah, Austin Smotherman a little bit?
Yeah, so Austin, maybe a little overshadowed by Bryson. They both were from Northern Cal. They came in together the same year. Austin was a great player, and I think he pushed Bryson because Bryson knew if he didn't work hard, that Austin had the chance to catch him. But Austin was kind of under the radar because it was all about Bryson, and everybody wanted to talk about Bryson at the tournaments. And Austin was a grinder, one of the most incredible ball strikers I've seen, and just really needed to improve a few little things in his short game or his putting. And he made a switch to a lab putter 2 weeks ago from one of our members at TF that has been our volunteer assistant, had a new lab putter, and he and Austin played a few weeks ago. And Austin was like, hey, let me try that. And then all of a sudden, Austin, I think he had a 15th place finish 2 weeks ago, but it was one of his best putting tournaments back on the Corn Ferry. And then he won the BMW and he was number one in putting. And now he's going to be headed back to the PGA Tour. He did play 2 years in a row on the PGA Tour, and then he didn't have a great year last year, so he's back on the Corn Ferry. So it's pretty great to see guys not only like at Bryson's level, but also an Austin level where it can be a struggle. But as long as you stay positive and believe in what you believe, like, and you're a good enough player, you're going to make it back. So I think Austin going through a little adversity, maybe the end of last year and the beginning of this year, that it's going to grow him as a player when he gets back to the PGA Tour. He'll be even more ready.
Is that something that you've seen? I mean, like, golf is going to throw so much adversity at you round by round, hole by hole. Is that like if you were to rank one of the key mental skill sets of an elite golfer, would resiliency or the ability to handle adversity be right up there?
Yeah, I think so. You look at guys like Chris Kirk, who really battled some stuff and disappeared for 4 or 5 years, and now he's back, right? Like that's obviously a case that how resilient he was and how good a team around him he was surrounded by, his team that knew he could get back if he could just, stay clean. Some guys come back from injuries and, at times, it's brutal playing the PGA Tour. If you can't get in that top 50 in the world, some former SMU golfers that came after me, but before I was coaching, so but I knew them as players. A guy like Kelly Craft that's been on and off the PGA Tour for about 7 or 8 years, just recently quit this year. He's got a young family, 2 kids, and it just gets hard chasing it. And so at the end of the day, I mean, guys bouncing back from whatever, uh, that is probably one of the most important things because there are the Jordan Spieths and the Scotty Schefflers. And, I would say Jordan's even been pretty resilient from, what some people would call a fall off. But, you start having young kids and the family becomes important. I've got 4 girls. Like at the end of the day, things your priorities shift, and you have to stay resilient. So I would agree. Like it's huge.
How do you balance that? Because I mean, golf at whatever level is an inherently selfish endeavor because to practice and to travel and Scotty seems to be the one guy that seems to be balancing it pretty well compared to a lot of very high profile golfers. But like, do you almost need to be a little selfish, a little crazy to be good at golf?
Hey, golf parents. Quick pause here. If you're enjoying this conversation and getting value from it, do me a quick favor. Hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening. It helps us reach more parents who are on the same journey as you, raising the next generation of great golfers. All right, that's it. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I was very selfish in my career. Yes, I did get married fairly young, had a daughter, but I missed a lot of her growing up. Right, I missed soccer games. I missed a couple of her equestrian competitions. I missed some volleyball games. I missed some dance recitals. Right, but when you're on the Corn Ferry or out of the top 75 in the world, like you're gonna miss those things if you want to be a successful golfer, but it doesn't always guarantee you're going to be successful. That's the hard thing. So, when I was able to get into coaching, I was able to see more of my oldest daughter's stuff and take her to her equestrian stuff. And at the end of the day, do I feel bad? Yes, because your kids only grow up once, right? And then now I've been fortunate that I am in coaching and I'm not on the road as much, and I have 2 stepdaughters and a really young daughter with my wife that now I'm going to get to see them grow up. But I think if you're in the top 30, 40 on the PGA Tour, I do think life is a little bit easier. A lot of them fly private and they're able to fly their whole family. And on the PGA Tour, they have daycare for children every day of the week. Whereas on the Corn Ferry, there was no daycare. So if your wife came with the kid, she's pushing the stroller around her. She's hanging out in a hotel room in wherever, not LA and Beverly Hills and Carmel. Like it's a completely.
What? So now as a coach, if you were to go back and coach maybe your junior self, pick whatever age that you think you need to hear whatever you need to hear, but what advice or what insights or what direction would you give your junior self that you wish you would have heard?
I was a perfectionist growing up. I was a really good soccer player. I was probably going to college a better soccer player, but I'd played since I was 4 years old, and I played select soccer for about 8 years, and it kind of just burned me out. And I love the challenge of golf, being a perfectionist, right? Like, I think I can perfect this. Like I can do this. And I started to play really well in high school, or good in high school. I wouldn't say I was great. I had a couple wins my junior year and a couple wins my senior year. I was recruited a little bit, and you know, I I would still continue to tell myself to probably be a well-rounded athlete. Like I would play golf in the summer for half a day. I'd play some tennis in the afternoon. I would swim, and then I had my soccer games. So I think we've seen a huge shift since Tiger came onto the scene. That a lot of these kids are one sport athletes. Uh, there are some golfers that can't probably dribble a basketball, that can't throw a football, that can't throw a baseball, and vice versa. Uh, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think we have to watch out for generations of kids possibly getting burnout and playing a sport, because golf's brutal, right? You travel a lot. It's like travel hockey for all the Canadian families that probably have kids that play a lot of hockey. Uh, it can burn you out pretty quickly, especially when things aren't going well. And golf's a solo sport, so you lose a lot when you're playing in a field of 80 kids in an invitational, or 300 kids at the US Junior. I mean, you lose a lot. So to stay focused and maybe have another sport to fall back on. Or I love to fish, and when you're playing a lot of golf, like there's usually ponds that have been on these golf courses for a long time. I know there's a lot of college golfers. There's some college coaches that have fishing poles in the back of their Sprinter vans, and if the team drives, like, hey, we're done practicing for the day, let's go fish for 30 minutes and just try to recharge and get away from the game.
Hmm. And you feel like that is something that allows you to, well, I mean, obviously you're it's in practice even right now that when the season's over, you take yourself away from the game for a little bit, recharge, and then go back to be really focused.
Is that something that you can teach even on the course as to in between shots? Like, what advice would you give to your players to be able to sustain, especially in a high pressure tournament situation, to be able to recharge in between shots and then get fully dialed in for each time that they're actually over the.
Yeah, I work a lot of stuff. I think early in my career when I was playing in Canada, I tried to focus the whole day for 4 or 5 hours on my round and didn't see as much success. And that started working with Dr. Gio Valiente, and I was able to get to the Corn Ferry Tour. And I think a lot of that success and was to the fact that you after you hit your shot, you've got to shut it off. Uh, Maybe give yourself 20 or 30 seconds while the other guys are hitting or you're walking to assess what maybe went right or what went wrong, and then forget about it for the next couple minutes while you walk to your ball. Uh, I really worked hard. I was very introverted, so I didn't talk to a lot of my playing partners very much. But I think later in my career, I started getting to know where other guys were from because I think golf's one of the most amazing sports, right? Like you're with two guys almost every round that you can really get to know and be friends for life because most likely you're going to see them once you get to tour or the Corn Ferry or the Canadian Tour or in college. You're going to see these kids throughout your entire career. Uh, so I challenge my kids that maybe when things aren't going well is to forget about the golf after you hit your shot and find out where a kid's from. And I've told my guys, I was like, I want to know at the end of your day where both your players were from, if they have siblings, where they maybe go to school. And all it does is just shift their focus from nonstop golf and what went wrong or what went right on every shot and trying to concentrate for 4 or 5 hours because you just can't. Uh, and I think that's why you see a lot of these guys in these majors like the US Open that's going on this week. Other than there is a signature event next week, like these guys will take weeks off after this event or the signature event. They are going to be mentally trained, uh, but it's a little bit different than a regular event. But I think shifting your focus away. And then when you get back to your ball, obviously you got to get back in it. And a Geo and I had a thing that maybe it's for some kids. As soon as you put your glove on, you undo the Velcro and you do the Velcro back. And now for the next minute or 45 seconds that it takes you to hit your shot, like that's your window again. Uh, but yeah, you're 100% right. Like 4 or 5 hours to concentrate on that game that day is too difficult. I remember Rotella and Geo talking about kind of painting your picture. So maybe while you're walking, you're trying to paint trees or bunkers visually in your mind, and that just takes your mind off your shots and what's maybe going on in your round.
What do you mean by that? By painting? Like, I know you always hear like Tiger was told to putt to the picture in his mind's eye, but what do you mean by like when you're walking, you're just like you're taking it all in of the trees, then you're
Yeah,
trying to redo it inside your mind and
yeah,
just
basically.
focusing on the visualization, the imagination side?
Yeah, 100%. Like I love golf course architecture. I drew golf courses all the time when I was younger and would try to shade the bunkers perfectly. And so when you're out there, it's like you can really see a tree that's there, but then to really paint it in your head, it's taking your mind, 'cause if the sky is blue, you can't think of the sky as red unless you shift your focus, right? So if you're out there trying to paint the golf course in your head, visually think about architecture, you're not thinking about your next shot until you shut your brain off because you can only think about one thing at a time. So it helps these people shift their focus. And I think, having a great sports psych is was invaluable to me. I mean, it helped change my career and get me to the Corn Ferry and help me compete out there, having Geo and having someone to talk to that I could get rid of my perfectionist and not focus for 4 or 5 hours about what I was doing wrong or doing right and what was going to happen on the next shot or where the trouble was, right? So, the quicker you can get away from focusing all of your attention on your sport or the round at hand, the better opportunity you're going to have to play well. And it won't always happen, right? It doesn't always happen because it's golf, but it gives you a better chance, I think.
I think so many perfectionist type personalities are attracted to golf for obvious reasons, but perfectionism seems to be the anecdote to being good almost, or the antithesis to playing well. What did you learn from your sports psychologists that were talking about being like how to overcome like perfectionism? It seems like it's a double-edged sword. It's a superpower to practice and to get better, but then it's very easy to beat yourself up when things aren't going well because, as we all know, golf is a game of mistakes all the time. It's a game of losing all the time.
What advice would you give to either a parent or a junior golfer that's struggling with being a perfectionist right now?
You have to. I think Geo really helped me. I had to learn to give myself some grace. We're humans. We're going to make mistakes. Early on in my career and in college, why couldn't I hit 14 fairways? Why couldn't I hit 18 greens every time I play? Like, it's a swing. The ball's just sitting still, right? There, yes, there's Mother Nature moving it, and you're returning the club face at the club speed that you have. So why not give yourself a little bit of grace? And yes, it's very difficult when you're a perfectionist, but you have to. Uh, the game will drive you mad. I've been there, and I'm speaking from my own experience. And there were times that I would have a very poor round when my dad was out watching me play. And for me, I didn't realize it was carrying over because I was hurt inside that maybe I let my dad down. Like, yeah, I only hit 9 fairways that day and 12 greens, and I shot 2 over because my short game wasn't sharp. That as a perfectionist, if you can't give yourself some grace, you carry it over to dinner, you carry it over into your family life. I think Brooks just said he's been pretty miserable the last couple of months. They just did an article, and I think Pete Cowan kind of ripped him a new one this week at the Open on Monday. He was in a bunker and he was muffing around and just mad, and he said, "What are you doing?" Different words, I'm sure, were used, but I think Justin Thomas said they talked for about 45 minutes, and he just had him reboot. And it's probably the same thing. Why am I not playing well? I always should play well. And I think that's why you see Brooks. He was playing great today. I think he got to 3 under before he made some bogeys. But you have to have that attitude shift, or it carries over. Like, your caddy's gonna be frustrated with you. Your family situation, your family dynamic is going to shift. And I saw it in my own life. And that was something that when Gio said, give yourself some grace. Like, if you shoot 75 on Thursday, that doesn't mean you're not going to shoot 65 or 68 on Friday. But if you can't get over it on Thursday night and you wake up Friday morning being like, oh, this is my life, there comes another 75 real quick and a miscut. You're going home, no paycheck. So, as much as people work on being perfect, you have to work even harder to give yourself that grace, to give yourself a chance.
So well said. What other traits have you seen from the best players? Either, players that you've coached, players that you've played with. Like, if you were to 3D print the mind of the perfect golfer, what would be going into that?
I think for my guys that I've seen have the most success is when they mess up, they bounce back pretty quickly. And it won't happen all the time, right? Like, how many times do you see someone miss a 3 or 4 footer and walk into the next tee? You already know they're about to hit one out of bounds, right? Like, they're steaming. And I've seen my great players like Bryson and Mac and Noah do this, but then we use it as a learning tool, right? Like, hey, I know you just 3 putted from 12 feet because you were trying to, make the first one for eagle, or hadn't made a birdie for 5 holes and you just got too aggressive. Let's calm down, take some deep breaths. Let's, tee off last. Don't jump the gun because you're the first one on the tee. Because a lot of times in college and junior golf, they have them play ready golf. But sometimes if you're the first one at the tee and you're running a little hot, you need to take those 4 or 5 extra deep breaths to just calm your nervous system down so you don't do something and exacerbate something poorly that happened on the next hole. Because in junior golf, you'll see a lot of bogey doubles, or a double and then a bogey bogey. And it's because they can't release that out of their mind what happened. So I think Bryson and Mac and Noah and some of the guys we have on the team now, a guy named Zach Kingsland, who's top 50 in Wagger. Zach got his first 2 wins this year. Will Side's got some wins. Is they really get up there and they try to forget what happened, good or bad.
Easier said than done. I mean, so we talk about breathing. Is that a skill set that we can cultivate or learn? Is how to actually be able to forget when things aren't going, or how to reset or reboot yourself?
Yeah, I think breathing is huge. We had a guy that I'm drawing a complete blank on his name right now, which is crazy. Met him on the Canadian tour, and they were doing some kind of brain testing, And it all came down to breathing. And guys like Jordan have worked with them. So Yun Ryu, who was #1 on the LPGA, she was a member at Trinity Forest. She would work with him, and he came in and talked to our team for a lot. We wore some of these, basically it was heart rate monitors, but it could also test how your lungs and how much expansion was in your like diaphragm. Because usually what happens when you're under pressure is we breathe really deep, but it's in our chest. So you never really get, all the oxygen out, the bad oxygen that really needs to come out. So we started doing a lot of, more belly breathing, and that helps calm the nerves, helps get the heart rate down as quick as possible to hit shots again. So I do think the breathing aspect of it has come a very long way, and there's actually really good studies. And when you wear that monitor, it gave us a lot of knowledge. And obviously, your sports psychology, your coaches will tell you to breathe, but like, what's the perfect breathing? Is it 4 in, 4 out for 2 minutes? But you've got to go back to something, whether it's the perfect breathing exercise or some kind of breathing exercise.
Yeah, I love that. So we've got painting the picture as you're walking down the fairway, giving yourself some grace, and tapping into the power of the breath. Are we missing anything?
Stay positive. Always try to stay positive, because you never know when the round's going to turn around, right? And it's not always going to be bad. It's not always going to be great. I think golf's one of the biggest roller coasters. If you play your whole life, and it's a sport you can play for your whole life, right? Like this afternoon, I'm going to take one of my buddies that's in town from Dallas and my wife, and we're going to go play. And I'm going to give myself a lot of grace. It's going to be my third 9 holes or 18 if my knee holds up and my shin today, but I've got to give myself grace. Like I'm bouncing back. And it's so easy to get frustrated. So just stay positive. Like, we're out here enjoying, I think, one of the best sports in the world, that I can play with a 5-year-old and I can play with a 90-year-old. And you can go play with Tiger Woods. You can play with Scotty Scheffler. You can go play with me and you, or your wives or your girlfriends. So it's a pretty amazing sport. I don't think there's maybe tennis, but when you get a little bit older in tennis, like, you can't move and get to the ball.
Yeah,
So I do think it's one of the greatest sports in the world.
I agree. We talked about a little bit of kind of being patient and allowing a round to kind of turn around, because you never know when you're going to turn things around. Going back to something earlier you said in the conversation, you were talking about you've got this turnover that happens in the rosters in college golf. So you're always rebuilding your program. Could you maybe talk a little bit about the recruiting process that you think that golf parents would need to know? And then also, what does it actually take to create a good culture in
Yeah. So, you know, the recruiting process hasn't been the easiest since COVID. And then now with the new house settlement and teams, possibly all year, we thought we were going to this roster limit. And then now they're going to possibly grandfather, the current kids on college teams in for a few years. So recruiting has changed a lot the last 4 or 5 years. There are, you have the AJGA, you have the TUGR, you have the junior golf scoreboard. So I would say a lot of the Division I coaches that I know, top 70 programs, they're really watching a lot of that, because you can't see every kid play all over the country. We don't have, for the 2027s that we're able to talk to on Monday, we haven't been able to talk to them, so we don't have their schedules. So it's like, you don't know where they're playing. So you fall back on these websites that kind of rank juniors and put all their scores in and find out, the kids that you possibly want to go watch. And then once June 15 hits, after your sophomore year, so going into your junior year, you can start talking to coaches. You can send emails before that, but coaches can't respond. So that way a coach does know a kid's interested. And, I would say a big thing for us is, we've been a top 25 program probably 75% of the time that I've been a coach at SMU, which I think is incredible at a small private school. The hard thing is we're only taking 1 to 3 kids probably per class. And, what kids really have to start realizing is, if you're ranked 300 in the country, it's really hard to go to a top 40 or 50 program, because they're getting kids that are in the top 50 in the world. So that's a shift. But then also kids want to be at an SMU because they want the education. I've had probably 10 kids that I didn't recruit that came to SMU because they want the education, wanted to try to walk on. We just don't really have room for walk-ons. But what it's done is SMU the last 2 years, I think, has finished second and fourth in the national club team. So it's pretty awesome that these kids still want to come to SMU. They're not quite the level of our golfers that we recruit, but they play on the club team. So there are a lot of options. I think once the house settlement that, many of the parents in high school might not know about yet, with these in the next several years, we're going to be down at 9 or 8 players, depending on what conference you're in. And it's going to really put kids, if they really want to play their sport at a school that they might not necessarily want to be at, if that makes sense, right? If a kid wants the SMU education, but he's ranked 300 in the country and I only have 9 players on my team, there's just no room. So I don't love that aspect of it. But I would say for a kid in the family is to pick, 10 schools that you could see yourself at realistically, and then decide, well, if I really want to be at a Stanford or an SMU, but I'm not quite good enough, do they have a great club team that I could still play? Because the club teams travel, they practice weekly, not with the team. But we've come really close with our club team, and we try to have them out to the golf course once a semester. And we all follow each other on social media. So we really try to help those guys out however we can. So that's kind of how, I recruit is early on in their career. We're looking at numbers, where they're ranked. And then starting on Monday, June 15th, I'll start reaching out to the kids that we're really interested in, and get their mindset right. Because you don't know where a kid wants to go. If he wants to be at a Tennessee or an Auburn or a Texas and loves football because he wants to watch great football games. I mean, SMU did make the playoffs this year. So that was pretty incredible for Coach Lash, SMU football team. But, there are some kids that want that. They want the huge sports. They want the Duke basketball. They want the Texas football games. But, then you got to narrow it down to the kids that really want to be at your school and play for you and have some of the most amazing practice facilities that we have at Trinity Forest. So that's a little bit of my recruiting spiel. I don't know if I missed anything. So yeah, recruiting's not the easiest thing in the world. I've brought in some of the best players in the country, and they don't play their freshman year. They're still adjusting to college life. And sometimes you bring in a kid that's ranked 45 in the country and he plays every event, like he's ready to go. So, the whole recruiting thing is very tricky. It's very tough. And it's only going to get tougher with the new house settlement.
What have you found is one of the common, what's a surprise adjustment that a lot of freshman players, when they're first coming from kind of junior life to then, their first year on the team, what have you seen that kind of maybe hits them from left field a little bit, or that they weren't quite expecting or ready for when it comes to adjusting to collegiate golf?
I would say the biggest thing is not having your family around who you're seeing every day. I don't know how many of the kids get homesick. We try to, one of my deals is I'm not just a golf coach. I'm there to be basically your stepdad and help raise you, right? Like I'm shaping future golfers, hopefully for the PGA Tour, but I'm also helping shape and change kids' lives so they're prepared for life when they get out of school, right? And I think a lot of our parents that we have kids on the team, they're thankful for that. Because there's a lot of kids that when we get to the airport, everybody goes to a kiosk now, right? Because everything's automated. So it's like, and we'll look over at a freshman and he'll be like staring at this kiosk, like, if I put my credit card in, is it going to charge me? Is it what do I do? And then I'm like, okay, now you got to get your bag tags. So a lot of that is just an adjustment because you've had family doing it for you, mom or dad or your parents, or some of the European kids maybe have chaperones that help them with a lot of that. So I'd say not having your family around, not having your home cooked meals, hopefully you know how to do your own laundry. Hopefully you know to change your sheets every week or 12 days, not go a whole semester without changing your sheets, right? So I'm as much a parent when a kid gets here their first year and help them grow up and really learn. And, they lean on the older kids too, because we've done a really good job at SMU. The former head coach that I worked for, Jason Enlow, our goal, you don't want to bring in when you have small teams, right? You can't have one cancer in your locker room. So we've really worked hard that if we're recruiting a kid, who are 2 or 3 other kids that you could see yourself being on the team with. So that's something we do in recruiting to make sure our 10 or 12 guys that are on the team are really basically like an extended family. and they all want to go hang out, play video games together. If we're not having qualifying or team practice, they all want to go play together. They all want to go have dinner together, because I have seen a lot of teams over my years. The older guys hang out. They don't, they don't haze, but they're really hard on the younger guys. Well, that creates friction, right? And then when you need 5 guys to go play well at that next event, and 2 of them are really young and 3 of them are much older, we're talking 3 years. But sometimes when you're 22, 23 years old, you're a lot more mature than an 18, 19-year-old. But they also try to put them in their place. And I don't think that's always good, because now you have a freshman or a sophomore that's, skittish around the older guys. So we really try to nip all that in the butt early on, and make sure we have a tight-knit family and show them about life. And then another thing when they get to college is they have so much more free time than they really did, right? Like the kids we have coming in this fall, he's like, I really don't want to do that much school because I want to be out of practice a lot. And I was like, well, you typically want to go to school for 2 to 3 hours a day in college, because you have your Tuesday, Thursday classes, and you have your Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, or you have a night class. And it's like, you're going to be out of class every day by noon at the worst. So you're going to have from 1 o'clock until 8:15 daylight savings time. So that's what, 7.5 hours? That's plenty of practice if you're doing it properly. So then we help, create practice schedules for the kids. And also with SMU being a little bit rigorous on academics, then the kids need to be ready for that. And when you do have an hour or 2 hours before dinner or after dinner, are you doing your homework? Are you staying on top of your assignments? Because you can fall behind as a golfer, especially the guys that are traveling. You travel a lot, and the professors, they're all excused absences, but sometimes professors get that or forget. Like golfers wake up at 5:30 in the morning for their practice round, and they get back, practice after the practice round, have a dinner, and they got to go to bed because they're up at 5:30 again the next morning. So as a student athlete, you really have to shift your focus and say, all right, I do need to dedicate 30 minutes before bed, or 30 minutes after dinner, or this 45 minutes for my class stuff. So you are putting forth an effort in both, because we do strive at SMU that you leave with an incredible degree that you have to fall back on if golf doesn't work out. So I know that was a lot, but I would say I'm just an extenuation of parents. And me and Coach Wilkins and Coach Donnell, they're 2 much younger guys than me, and I think that was important for me when I hired them, was to make sure that I had guys that were closer to the generation of kids that we have now. I do listen to a lot of the top 40 music, so I'm still in on the music. I do have to go to Urban Dictionary, I think, every semester and find out what some of these slangs mean. About my kids one time were sitting in the back of the Suburban on the way back to the hotel, and they're like, yeah, I think I'm just going to go back and rock for a little while. And I don't want to turn around being a 40 or something year old going, guys, what's rocked? Because I've heard my nephew say it. So it was like, basically they just want to go lay on their bed, watch TV, do nothing. So yeah, so I'm learning new slang every year, which is awesome. So it's keeping me young. But like I said, I'm here to do everything. I'm not just a golf coach and helping you become best golfer in the world.
Love that. Well, I learned a new word, rot, because I'm also 40 something, and I mean, it makes sense. So you're just gonna rot away. Um, Chris, this was awesome. Like I'm sold. I'm now your biggest fan, and I think SMU is an incredible program. I mean, obviously, success speaks for itself, but for those parents that are listening and kind of want to get into the ecosystem, either reach out to you or follow along with the team's success on socials. Like, what's the best way for golf parents to kind of get into your world?
I have my own kind of private that I have family stuff on, and I do repost some SMU golf stuff. So social media is great. If kids are really wanting to go to a certain school, I would say every team has a roster. Go look at the roster, see where the kids are from, different geographical parts of the world. I've had a hard time. I haven't recruited much in the north because it's so much colder, and the kids are used to having 4 or 5 months off from the golf season. So I have recruited a lot in the south. And then at the bottom of the roster, it usually has all the coaches listed. And I think it's a great idea for parents and the kids. It'd be great if the kids did it, because then it does show that the kids are taking initiative. I love it when I get an email from a kid, whether he's good enough to play for us or not, that he took the initiative to parents can help him find the email, but the kid emails me.
So I'm hearing that over and over again, Chris. What percentage of emails, let's just say you get 100 emails that come in, what percentage are written by the parents and what percentage are actually coming directly from the kid?
I would say 80 to 85% are probably from the kids.
Okay.
But then there are the parents that really do kind of take over their kid's life, and they're the ones, and it's just constant, week after week or every other week, just an email from a parent. And, my whole goal is, we're helping these kids grow up, we're helping prepare them for life. And as uncomfortable as some things can be, right? Like getting hired or getting fired, like there's uncomfortable things in life. Or if you have to I've had to dismiss kids from our team before for breaking team rules, right? And it's something that might be uncomfortable early on for a kid. It's like telling your swing coach you want a second opinion. I think it's a great idea to do. With all the social media now, you don't tell your coach. Next thing you know, you're on social media with another coach and they find out. And yeah, those things make you uncomfortable, but it's not like it's 50-50 from parents and kids. And it's okay if a parent, I think, is copied on the email, but I do think it means a lot more to a coach. It didn't even have to be a perfect email, maybe just a resume that your parents helped put together. It's coming from the kid. I'm a 2027. I'm a 2026 coach. I love your school. And then I would add a few, we have kids that know how we played in every tournament. And obviously they went and looked at our schedule on our website. And so little details like that can go a long way. It really shows the kid. I would say every month I get an email from a kid that's like, "Hey, Coach Deacon." And I'm like, "Well, that's the Florida coach. And yeah, he's really good. We look nothing alike, but he's a great guy." But
Yeah, copy and paste.
I tend to night, yeah. So they copied and paste and they just forgot. And I get you're sending out 10 or 12 emails, but to be polished, let your parents check it. It doesn't have to be perfectly well written. I mean, you got so much AI stuff now that can help you with it. Get your resume together, get your schedule together. If you're a 27 or 28, make sure you put maybe your swing coach's contact info in there, because we're allowed to talk to a swing coach. We don't discuss scholarship information, but there have been kids that are, top 15 in the country that we're not allowed to talk to yet. But I can ask his swing coach questions like, would they be interested in SMU? And I think they'd be a great fit here. And then obviously they can relay that message to the players.
Interesting.
But I think you add those little tidbits. That's stuff that probably a lot of parents might not know. That can be very helpful. And then in your schedule, when you list your upcoming events, like, are they AJGA? Are they state run, like our North Texas or South Texas PGA? I know California does a great job. Florida does a great job with their section events for the younger kids. And if you're not in AJGA and we talked about some of the invitationals I've already recruited. I was able to go and recruit out these last few weeks. Not every kid's going to be in an invitational, but that doesn't mean you're not going to make it. We talked about Mac Meisner, a kid that was probably ranked 12th in the state of Texas when he was coming to school, and Rice was on him early, and we started talking to his swing coach, and we got on him, and he chose SMU, and he became an All-American. He wasn't the guy that was playing in every invitation. So just stay focused, stay positive, play wherever you can play, because that's invaluable at the end of the day. Is your scores, no matter if it's a city-run tournament or the best invitational in the country. Like, it's still a round of golf that's helping you grow as a player.
Fantastic advice. Chris, this has been eye-opening. You've shared a lot of stuff that I've never heard before and a lot of tidbits on how to reach out to the coaches. Beautiful. Can parents, I'm curious, like is one of the reasons why a lot of the parents reach out because this is kind of like a workaround where you can't directly talk to the kid, but you can talk to their parents? Now, is that allowed?
You can't talk to parents or siblings.
Either. Okay.
There is some gray area that, if, let's say, a kid is at my club and I've known his dad for a long time, but I don't push the envelope. I know SMU got the death penalty back in the day, and then the head coach before Enloe got in a lot of trouble for something that was pretty minor. It was banned from coaching, I think, for 3 years. So I don't really push the envelope. It's just not worth it to me, because we're going to get the kids that really want to be here, that fit our program. But like I said, you can talk to a swing coach. So it's like, if I don't know the swing coach or we haven't received an email from kid, I can usually go to a kid's Instagram and look at his story. And usually he'll repost something from his swing lesson that day or recently. And now I have the coach's email and I can, you can contact them. But I really don't push the envelope in the gray areas or try to step over boundaries. I'm very quiet at the junior tournaments. I don't ever overtalk to the parents that we're not allowed to talk to yet. And some of the rules are crazy because golf, we walk with the families for 4 or 5 hours at a tournament. There's no other sport you do that. Well, some of these rules that have been created were for basketball. So on Monday, I could actually go to a golf tournament. I can't talk to the parent in person, but they can walk on the other side of the fairway and we can talk the entire day on the phone. I follow the rules, but they're just, it's just different. It is. And I've had parents call me before from the other side of the fairway so that we could talk, because you could talk through electronics, but you couldn't talk in person so in person, we can't meet with the 2027s until August 1st. So it's different. But I'm a rule follower. My kids are rule followers. And, like I said, I try to lead by example and prepare these kids for life. So that's my ultimate goal, is that you're a better person than when you came there and you are ready for life when you get out. And hopefully it's on the PGA Tour and winning majors.
But either way, you're going to be better off as an adult and as a human for playing golf, being in your ecosystem, and being involved in just golf in general. Chris, again, I want to thank you for your time. This has been awesome. A lot of tidbits. I've been taking notes frantically, and I know a lot of the audience has been as well. So appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks. I had a blast. Anytime you need me again, I'm around. I love doing this and helping out families and kids and just giving them more knowledge, right? Like, you don't have all the knowledge. So here to help. Happy to help.
Hey, golf parents. Before you go, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you found value in this episode, please follow the podcast, leave a short review, or share it with another golf parent who would love it. Every single one helps us grow this movement to raise future champions together. Thank you. See you next week.